You are 23 years old. It's 23 minutes past 1 in the morning, April 26th, 1986. You're a firefighter in a small Soviet town called Pripyat, and you're asleep when the alarm goes off. There's a fire at the power plant. Reactor number 4. That's all they tell you. A fire on the roof. You've done roof fires before. You grab your gear, a canvas jacket, a helmet, rubber boots, standard stuff. Nobody hands you anything special, because as far as command is concerned, this is a normal fire. It is not a normal fire. What you don't know, what nobody on that truck knows, is that 40 minutes ago, that reactor blew its lid off. 2 explosions, back to back. First a steam blast, then a chemical one, powerful enough to lift a 1,000-ton concrete cap and throw it aside like a bottle cap. The core is open to the sky right now. You are about to drive straight toward the most radioactive object on the planet, and you're wearing the same outfit you'd wear to a kitchen fire. Here's the thing about that test they were running. It was supposed to happen during the day. A low-power safety test. Routine on paper. But delays pushed it to the middle of the night shift. A skeleton crew. Less experienced. Half of them improvising. Add a reactor design with a fatal flaw the operators were never even told about, and you get a power surge that goes vertical in seconds. None of that is your fault. None of it is even your problem yet. Because right now, you're just a kid on a fire truck, and your job is to put out a fire. You arrive. The building is burning, but something is off. There are chunks of black rock scattered all over the ground, glowing faintly, giving off heat. You don't recognize it. Nobody tells you what it is. It's graphite. From inside the core, some of the men pick it up with their bare hands to clear a path. A few of them will describe a metallic taste in their mouths, like sucking on a coin. Their skin starts to tingle, then burn. One firefighter says it feels like a sunburn coming on fast. You keep working, because that's the job. And because your lieutenant, a man named Vladimir Pravik, also in his 20s, is right there beside you, doing the same thing. You spend hours up there. And here is the quiet horror of it. The fire you can see is not what's killing you. The thing that's killing you is invisible, silent, and already inside your cells, rewriting them. You are being irradiated at a dose that has no cure, and you don't even know it's happening. You think you're a hero fighting a fire. From above, the system sees something else. It sees a body it can spend. By morning, you and your crew have stopped the fire from spreading to the other reactors. That mattered. That genuinely saved lives. And then you start vomiting. So does everyone else. They load you into ambulances and fly you to Moscow. 28 of the people who responded that night die in the weeks and months that follow, their bodies breaking down from acute radiation syndrome. Their skin comes off. Their organs fail. And when they finally die, their bodies are so radioactive that they are sealed inside lead coffins and buried under concrete. You don't get a normal grave. You become hazardous waste in a suit. The official Soviet death toll for the entire disaster, 31 people. 2 who died that night, 29 from radiation after. That number has never been updated since 1986. Not once. Hold on to that number. 31. Because now I want to show you what the system was doing while you lay dying in a Moscow hospital. Back in Pripyat, your town, where your family lives, nothing happens. For 36 hours, life goes on. It's a warm spring weekend. Kids ride their bikes. People hang laundry. Couples get married. And across the river, some of them walk out onto a railway bridge to watch the plant burn. Because the fire throws off this eerie, beautiful blue light, ionized air glowing over the ruined core. You've probably heard that everyone on that bridge died. That it's called the Bridge of Death. That part is a myth, and it's worth being honest about it. The bridge was real. The crowd was real. The radiation up there was genuinely dangerous. Many of those people got sick, some developed cancer. But the idea that all of them dropped dead isn't true. Plenty of them lived into the 2000s. The legend got bigger than the fact. But you don't need a legend to see the horror here. The plain truth is enough. An entire town of ordinary people stood outside, breathing radioactive air for a day and a half, because the people in charge decided that admitting the truth was more dangerous than letting citizens soak in it. When the evacuation finally comes, around 2 in the afternoon on April 27th, the announcement over the loudspeakers tells everyone it's temporary. 3 days. Bring your papers, bring some clothes, leave your pets, you'll be back soon. Nobody ever went back. Now watch the pattern repeat, bigger. It's May 1st. 5 days after the explosion, the reactor is still open, still pumping radioactive material into the sky. And in Kyiv, a major city about 80 miles away, the Soviet Union holds its May Day parade anyway. Thousands of people, marching bands, children with flowers. Why? Because the orders came down from the very top. Do not cause a panic. The local party leadership was reportedly told that if they cancelled the parade, they'd be expelled from the party. So the officials in charge didn't just send the crowds out. Some of them stood on the reviewing platform with their own families, their own children, to prove there was nothing to fear. That's not just a lie told to the people. That's a lie the liars had to swallow themselves. Here's the part that should make you furious. The world only found out because of a pair of shoes. On the morning of April 28th, a worker walked into the Forsmark nuclear plant in Sweden, over 800 miles away, and set off the radiation alarm. Not going in. Coming in. It was on his shoes. The Swedes assumed their own plant was leaking and started evacuating. Then they checked and realized the radiation wasn't theirs. They traced the wind and the isotopes back to the east, back to the Soviet Union, and they went public. Only then, cornered, exposed to the entire planet, did the USSR say anything. That night, around 9 o'clock, the state news agency read a statement. It was about 20 words long. An accident has occurred at the Chernobyl power station. That was it. Days after the worst nuclear disaster in history, the official acknowledgement was shorter than this sentence. A few days later, on May 2nd, they finally draw the line. A zone 30 kilometers across, about 19 miles, sealed off around the reactor. Over 100,000 people are eventually removed from their homes forever. And then comes the cleanup. And the cleanup is where the whole logic of the system shows its face completely. The most contaminated spot was the reactor roof, still covered in chunks of that graphite. The radiation up there was so intense, 10 to 12,000 Roentgen an hour, that they brought in remote-controlled robots from Germany and Japan to clear it. And the robots died. The radiation fried their circuits in minutes. The machines just stopped. So, the Soviets sent in men instead. They called them biorobots. Young soldiers wrapped in lead sheeting they'd stitched together themselves. Aprons, gloves, whatever they could improvise. Each man ran onto the roof, shoveled 1 or 2 pieces of graphite over the edge, and ran back. That's it. 40 to 90 seconds, timed to the second. One trip, one time, for the rest of your life. Sit with that sentence. The machines were too valuable to sacrifice. The men were not. When technology failed, the answer wasn't to stop. The answer was to use people as the machine. Flesh where the circuit board burned out. That is what expendable actually means. Not a word in a report. A 20-year-old with a homemade lead apron running toward the thing that killed the robots. So let's go back to that number, 31. Because here's what the world can't agree on. The Soviet Union says 31 and stopped counting. The World Health Organization, in a joint study, estimated the eventual toll could reach around 4,000. The International Agency for Research on Cancer looked across all of Europe and put the figure closer to 16,000. And Greenpeace, counting every early death across the most contaminated regions, said the real number could be somewhere between 93,000 and 200,000. I'm not going to tell you which one is correct. The honest answer is that no one truly knows, and anyone who gives you one confident number is selling you something. That gap, from 31 to 200,000, is not a rounding error. It's a measure of how badly a system did not want to look at what it had done. And that's the real lesson buried under all the radiation. The reactor was a machine flaw. But the disaster, the town left in the dark, the parade under the poison cloud, the 20-word confession, the men sent to do a dead robot's job, that wasn't an accident. That was a choice. A system that decided, over and over, that the truth was more dangerous than the deaths, and that people were the cheapest thing it had. You were the first one through the door that night. You put out the fire. You saved the other reactors. And in the official record, you're 1/31st of a tragedy. You were never a number. You were the fuel they were willing to burn.